Red Feather presents From the Archives. Chapter 4, Elephant's Foot.
Okay, so Impulse dug up this old box of cassette tapes out of artifact storage and asked if they should be in the archives instead. I said I don't know, they look pretty strange to me. I've never exactly seen cassette tapes that writhe like that. They were probably with the artifacts for a reason. So we asked Xi Zuma, and he said to keep the originals in storage, but re-record them onto new tapes so the archives have a copy as well. So, I guess that's what I'm doing now. So this is a statement given by... Okay, so the audio quality on these gets pretty bad at parts. There's a lot of distortion, so apologies in advance to any future listeners. Point is, I can't make out the name. I think it starts with a Z. The box they were found in had been in storage since the 70s, so who knows how old they are. Anyways, that's all from me. Statement begins.
Alright, here we go. This is tape 1 of my recorded investigations into what I have decided to call the inexplicable mouse hole. Or the mystery mouse hole. The name's still being workshopped, but I think I might be onto something. Myself, of course, being Dr. Google, for the scientific record. So, for my own future reference, because we are approaching this scientifically, just now, while I was sweeping up the laboratory, I came across this gap in the wall, right at the baseboard. It looks like a mouse hole. There aren't any mice in here, obviously. At least not other than lab mice. The entire area is kept extremely sterile. And to be honest, this doesn't much look like an animal chewed it anyways. It really looks more like a Looney Tunes conception of a mouse hole, you know? All perfectly round, way bigger than it should be. Measurements show it's 7.5 centimeters wide, 10 centimeters tall. Mouse holes are normally measured in millimeters, so I feel confident in saying this hole was not, in fact, made by mice. Initial qualitative observations are as follows. When I shine a flashlight down the mouse hole, I can see for about 2 meters by my estimation before it vanishes into the darkness. When I lie flat on my stomach, I can stick my arm down it to the shoulder, and it seems to go straight back into the wall further than I can reach, making it at least a meter deep, likely further. Which is especially noteworthy, because I requested the building plans from the main office, and there should be less than half a meter of wall space between my lab and the next one. I should have been able to touch drywall easily. I haven't reached any conclusions so far, but from my preliminary investigations, this may very well be a genuine spatial anomaly. It's now... oh... Goodness, it's late. Lost track of time. I'll begin experimentation tomorrow. Tape 2, day 1 of proper experimentation. This is very exciting. I decided to start by rolling some ball bearings I had around from a past project down the hole to see if I could gauge depth by how long it took me to hear an impact, so I could begin mapping the area behind the wall based on that data. Because it's seeming evident to me that I am in some way dealing with an extra dimension of space. I flicked the first ball bearing down and listened to it roll. It rolled for about 1 minute and 12 seconds before I stopped being able to hear it at all. I noted this down and prepared to repeat the experiment, but before I could, I started hearing the sound of it rolling again, much clearer and coming from behind me. The ball bearing bumped into the back of my shoe. I turned around, and that's when I saw the second mouse hole. The second mouse hole was not there yesterday. I know, because as soon as I found the first one, I did a thorough sweep of the room to ensure there weren't any others. The second one is almost directly opposite the first, offset by 2.5 centimeters, and has the same dimensions. I'm sure I don't need to say that this is an extremely exciting development. It appears whatever this anomaly is, it must be progressing or developing in some way. I borrowed a 25-foot measuring tape from one of my lab neighbours, and I ran the whole thing into the first mouse hole, but there was no sign of it emerging from the second mouse hole. I can only conclude that the space behind these walls is very large. I wonder what would happen if I made more holes. We have so much more lab space now. Tape 7? Tape 7. Observations. I now have several experiments set up to run permanently to study the apparent transfer of objects and energy between the various gaps in the walls. There is a definite loss of speed and velocity between entry and exit, as well as a notable time delay even when objects enter travelling at high speed, which still implies far more space than I have yet to map. There's so much about this anomaly to study and so little time in the day. I don't even remember when I last slept at home. One of my colleagues stopped by this morning. Apparently I've been making quite a bit of noise in here, which I hadn't been terribly aware of, and there have also been some strange effects on some of my neighbours' walls and doors. I'm not certain whether that's related to my work in here, but it's definitely an avenue I ought to investigate. If this anomaly is somehow spreading, that adds an entirely new dimension to this situation. I offered to explain my experimentation to my visitor, but she left awfully fast. I guess she was busy, and I probably looked frightful with the amount of work I've been doing. Tape 7.5. I realised after my last recording that I probably ought to go home and, take showers, sleep in a bed, that sort of thing. Good science takes a healthy body and a sound mind. However, there's been an unexpected development. A few, actually. I think there's something wrong with my face. It's hard to pin down what. I'm still extremely handsome, obviously, but... There's something. My teeth? I think it might be my teeth. My eyes too, there's something... And I've got a headache too, though that's probably just the sleep deprivation. Now, I don't think this is a problem per se. Definitely not anything worth stopping my research over, certainly not. But I do think I'm going to start taking photos of myself regularly. For documentation. Tape 20? I don't think I've talked enough about the colours yet. They're really extraordinary. I think they started leaking through not long after the mouse holes first appeared, but I just couldn't see them at first. My eyes hadn't adjusted enough yet, But they're on everything now, like oil slick stains, and they glitter. Really fascinating. I think it must be something to do with the interaction with light. Now, the question is, are they truly non-physical? Is this a mutative effect, radiation maybe, or a substance like some sort of gas or liquid that's interacting with physical objects? I think they're starting to drip out into the hallway too. Hopefully the janitor isn't mad at me. Though, come to think of it, I haven't seen him come around lately. Is it a holiday? I'll have to check that later. At least I know whatever effects it may have are fairly harmless, given I've been exposed more than anyone, and I'm perfectly fine. Which brings me to my next point. I'm considering an expedition. The holes in the walls are certainly big enough to walk through now. I'm thinking if I grab some rope as a byline to find my way back and set a timer for, let's say, 5 minutes, I should be able to gather far more data and maybe even gain a better understanding. An absolutely fascinating discovery today. One of my lab benches is no longer level with the floor, and I have no idea why. All the legs are still the same length, the bench is the exact same proportions as before, and yet somehow it's now off level with the floor. I wonder if this reinforces my theory of radiation. Maybe there is some fundamental damage being done on a material level we don't even understand. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a conundrum on our hands. When to go talk to my colleagues in the neighbouring lab spaces to consult them about the anomaly, as well as ask about any influences they've been experiencing on their own workspaces. However, I've made 2 unexpected observations. Observation 1. The effects of the anomaly have spread much further into the hallway than I had anticipated. The gaps are appearing and spreading all along the walls, and along the floor too. I almost fell right down one when I stepped out my door. Observation 2. All of the labs in this wing of the building are empty. I'm not sure where everyone's gone. Maybe they evacuated due to the anomalous effect? I can imagine not everyone would be so keen to work in close proximity to an open extra-dimensional gateway, though if that's the case, I'm very surprised that nobody came to alert me. I can also see some yellow caution tape down at one end of the hallway, blocking off this block of labs. I wonder if some accident happened and that's why everyone else seems to have evacuated. Or their access was blocked off somehow? Hypothesis. There was some sort of accident overnight, and everyone who was out of the building is currently unable to get back in. Meanwhile, I've been sleeping in my laboratory, so I've been unaffected. If that's the case, there's nothing to worry about. They'll be back as soon as whatever the issue is cleaned up. And in the meantime, I've got all these new doors to all this unused lab space going to absolutely criminal waste anyway, so... Tape 30-something? Good news! I found some of my colleagues. You know, I really do think I could spend the rest of my life here. There's no limit to what I can discover. How many projects could I set up inside a space that breaks the laws of physics? How does the space break the laws exactly? What rules of its own does it follow? Are there any? If so, how? If not, how? How could the space be used to facilitate constructions that would be impossible anywhere else? So many questions. It's so lucky I've got all the time in the world to try and answer them. My primary laboratory space has been primarily subsumed at this point, so finding things has become slightly more difficult, but I've also gotten far better at navigating. I don't know why I was ever worried about falling in. It's really just efficient to utilize it. I don't know why it took me so long to figure that out. Did they evacuate the whole complex? My head hurts. Tape 193,842. This is so interesting.
And that's it. Not much to say on this one. We can't validate anything without any surviving identifying information. We weren't even able to track down where these events might have taken place. There are hundreds of private lab spaces in the UK, many of which have gone defunct since the 70s. There were also a bundle of Polaroids at the bottom of the box these tapes were found in. A few of them flaked apart into coloured paper when I touched them, but some were intact. Most of them are very grainy, but, well, I'm not surprised he had a headache, I'll say that much.
From the Archives is a fanfic series written by Johnny 16th Days and Zephaniah Grains, inspired by the Magnus Archives and by Hermitcraft and other Minecraft series. This chapter was performed by McDuck as Zedaf and Tizzy as Grian. Editing for this episode was done by Campfire and Noctude. Music was composed by Noctude. Thanks for listening.